Next up, I'm delighted to announce our keynote speaker, Edison Terra. He's an executive vice president at Braskem. He currently leads the polyolefins business in South America and Europe, as well as the renewable chemicals business. And he's been in this role since January of 2017. So Edison, welcome to the program.
Okay, thank you, Harvey. I'm trying to share my screen here. Let's see if it works. I hope it does. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, it's technology, but it's also supply chain, right?
Right, exactly. Perfect. We can see.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are connecting from. Thanks, Harvey, and thanks, Mike, and thanks, Plug and Play, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, in fact, to be in so many places at the same time. I'm on the chemical business for over 20 years now, and for several years with the responsibility over the supply chain flow, let's say, involving sales, production, logistics, planning, and everything in the sense to make our customers happier and also our shareholders happier, right? I mean, this is the combination of supply chain and logistics. And I think it's a very interesting time to talk about it concerning everything that we are facing, mainly regarding what is happening with COVID-19. We were used to speak about the VUCA world, right? And then a lot of volatility that would come out from it. And maybe with everything that we have been facing for the last 2 or 3 months, maybe the VUCA world is already outdated. We have much more of a change, and there will be a huge impact on supply chain. I mean, we have been seeing a lot of discussions on how can we restructure our supply chains in several different areas. I mean, mainly being the health segment and health safety may be one of the most relevant ones, and how countries from a strategic perspective have to be prepared to deal with that, right? So what is happening now is that basically we are changing from those incremental variations questions that, okay, oh, what is going to happen with my demand? Will it grow 3% next year? Will it go 5%? To questions that are much more disruptive. I mean, will my demand exist in the future? And maybe I have to update this slide here because maybe 10 years is too much. We are seeing situations where demand can appear or disappear, I would say, from one day to the other. And this is, I would say, where having an ability to adapt, it's very important. And this also applies, I would say it applies to everything in business, but it applies also to what we are talking about, which is supply chain. Technology is there. I would say technology is available. The problem is how we're going to use it, and we're going to emphasize the how during all this presentation, I would say. In this book that I recommend for those who want to go on the adaptation, on the adapt culture, there is a sentence that was very, I would say, remarkable to me, which is no plan, and it comes from the army, right? No plan resists to the first contact with the enemy. And as it happens, we have to be prepared. We have to act, we have to measure the results, and we have to adapt. Every time we're doing something new, there will be failures, and we have to learn from that in order to reach success. I do recommend this book for those who want to go deeper in the subject. And as companies, we are here to prepare and to do today what will be relevant, what will matter tomorrow. And I would say that leaders as well has a different role on this environment. This is a very complex environment. In the past, we were used to have leaders that by themselves would be able to, let's say, to have a vision and to have also the plan, the strategy and the plan to reach success. Today, when problems are much more complex than they used to be, it's much harder to have that kind of leader. We really need to have a bunch of people and to slice the good skills that everyone have and combine them together and to create solutions that will be built by a team and solutions that no one would be able to do by him or herself. So the leader has now a new and the necessity to really be the one who will set the stage for the team to rock and to put a lot of people with complementary skills working together to reach a common moonshot. So getting into closer to Braskem, I would say we are in the chemical and petrochemical business. We have seen our world changing for the last 10, 15 years, but I would say on the last 3 to 5 years, a very relevant change, mainly in one of the most relevant business we are, which is the plastics business, right? I mean, plastics is a very important material in our society. It's democratic, it's versatile, it's very competitive, but because of its success, it also has, and we also have to lead with a lot of issues that it brings, being probably the most relevant one today, waste management. And we need to find a different way to operate in that environment. And our vision has always been to emphasize circular economy, which means that we have to move away from the typical linear production chain that we have today and to make this become, I would say, a more circular product chain, which means that we have to start from scratch, redesigning the products that we have in our chain, changing the way that we manufacture, changing the habits, and in a way, increasing our ability towards a more responsible consumption. So to educate society in that sense, to incentive the recycling chain, and bring in a technology to meet those new needs to address something that is a kind of a pain for our society today. So we have done this. We have been working very hard to do this in several partnerships. I would say bringing brand owners, bringing our customers, bringing the academy, bringing a lot of people in research centers, and working with open innovation in order to establish different initiatives that are very complementary, that will develop what we call this new kind of production chain, which is the circular economy. One of the most relevant highlights that I would like to show you is our I'm Green family, which is products that are being made out of ethanol sugarcane, products that in the past were and today are still produced from oil or from gas, so from a fossil source, that we are now able to produce from renewable sources. And this is very important also from greenhouse gases emission standpoint. But this is about, I would say, the products. We're talking about so I would say physical changes in our products, but I would say that it's not only what we do, but mainly how we do it. And I think this is something that moves us towards our processes, but the way we approach our relationship with the society and with our team members. So this is another change that we have been working to find a way to make team members, to encourage team members to discover their way to work with Braskem and to reach a higher level of satisfaction by working with Braskem. I mean, so it's very important to have a culture that is really centered on the individuals in order for you to be able to bring this slice of the solution, the skills that by building, I would say, a multidisciplinary team, you can have and you can reach good solutions for complex problems. We also have been working in digital, so it's the products, what we do, the how we do it, mainly focus on the people, but also the technology that you can bring. And besides the technology, again, how we change the way we work and how we change the way that people build the new solutions is very important. In a way, I would say, of course, that you're going to have a lot of startups bringing new technology solutions here, but in a way, I would say technology will be there. If not on the shelf, you could have companies that will develop it for you, but the way you approach and how you lead with that technology and how you use that technology to bring and to build the solutions that we need is something that will, in my view, will be the major differentiation that we can have. This is just one final example, which is a very trendy one that we like to emphasize. It also regards a circular economy. It's a partnership that we have with Made in Space, which is, and this has also a lot to do with supply chain. I don't know if you know, but Made in Space is a partnership that is helping and supporting NASA to figure out how are they going to build their mission to Mars. And it will be impossible to have a mission to Mars if you're not able to build several steps and several devices on the way, or even on a future station in Mars. Otherwise, you're going to need, for instance, if you need a spare part, you would need 1 year to go there and 1 year to come back, which means that basically you have to build the ability to build it there. And so what we are doing here, we are mixing this 3D printing capability to build stuff on the space station in order for this, after developed, to be used in a mission to Mars. And what we've done now, we're also making a way to recycle those things that are built in the space station in order to make them circular as well. So which means that we're gonna you 3D print a device, and then you're able to recycle it, to recover and to reintroduce that material in the, let's say, in the space station economy by making other stuff out of something that you have used. This is a very nice, it's a very nice concept. I would say going to the matter of supply chain, just to give a little bit of the complexity that we're in. Of course, there are other industrial networks as or even more complex than ours, but I would like to share with you a little bit. We are talking about a company that have a 41 industrial units around the world. So this is basically our industrial footprint, assets in Brazil, United States, Germany, Mexico, but selling the products that we produce on those facilities over 80 countries around the globe. So we are talking about 500 different resin grades. And if you go to SKUs, it's even more than that, because you have bulk deliveries and you have different packagings. We are talking about 2,500 customers and around 10 million tons of product that is transported by truck only in Brazil, to give you an example of what you're talking about here. We're talking about, for instance, 1,600 of total trucks loaded each day to deliver to our customers in Brazil. We have multimodal transportation. We have several different warehouses. We have liquids, we have solids, we have gases. We have, I would say, it's a complex operation, and then supply chain and logistics is fundamental to make this work, and to make this work in a very, I would say, agile way and an efficient way to deliver our customers what they need. And again, it brings us to the way you rethink the process, from the traditional approach to the agile approach. I mean, you probably have been talking a lot about technology, but I would say that besides, when we're talking about digital, I would say besides the solution, the technology solution itself, and all the solutions that have been built that I'll present you in the next slides, it's also the way you approach the problem, the way you think about your business. And this is a very relevant change. I mean, this culture of, I mean, we are an industrial company, very intense in capital utilization, which means that we are used to plan a lot and to analyze and to think and to rethink and to do the calculations. And sometimes for the new environment, maybe sometimes you're not allowed, you don't have the time to do that. And so you need really to act and respond in a different way from the traditional way that companies, industrial companies like ours were used to do in the past. So how you change and how you rethink the way you behave and the way you work is very important. So some information about what we're doing. I mean, we have the whole supply chain being affected by the initiatives. It starts with the way we forecast the demand. I mean, traditionally you have the sales force teams looking into the market, talking to customers to make their predictions. We're bringing algorithms to do that and to enhance the ability that they have to do that. When you're talking about logistics, you can monitor everything on time and with a lot of data that will give feedback to your process. We have a platform to optimize logistics. As I mentioned to you, truck delivery is very important in one of the most relevant operations we have, which is in Brazil. And truck deliveries means that you have not only to plan your deliveries, but in order for you to be efficient, you must know that the truck that delivers your good must have a back half right, otherwise you're going to lose a lot of efficiency. Vessel monitoring, inventory optimization. We're talking here about, I would say, many thousand metric tons of product in terms of inventory. So we're talking on $1 billion of inventories that we can optimize. Then autonomous warehouse and autonomous scheduling. I mean, there's several. This is a taste of everything we're doing. I'm going a little bit fast on the different solutions, but track and trace of our assets to enhance logistics and to detect and to anticipate problems that may happen. So we have established the concept of having a control tower for our logistics on a regional basis to increase the visibility, the information, the transparency, and to be able to build corrective and preventive measures. The load shock platform that has to do with that optimization of truck logistics, which integrates systems and optimized utilization of the assets. It can also be offered. The idea is that this concept will be offered to the companies, to the third-party service suppliers that work with us, and then you bring intelligence to match, I would say, the fleet with the freights that you need. Digital demand forecasting, again, we know that we have the bias today. The bias is from the account managers, the commercial managers. They have their own biases in the way they forecast the market. The idea here is to bring advanced analytics techniques in order to predict the demand, and with artificial learning to increase the efficiency of our planning process. And there's a lot of money when you reduce inventories out of this by increasing the assertiveness of your forecast. And then scheduling. I mentioned to you that we have 500 different grades, and this brings a lot of complexity when we schedule our plans. Just to give you an idea, we have, I would say, an optimum sequence of products in our product wheel, which means that sometimes if I have to change to one grade to another one, in order to go back, I have to go all around the wheel in order to go back to that product. And so having this scheduling based on good forecast, but also on good optimization it's very important. It has a lot to do with the efficiency of our business. I would say that one of the key learnings from everything that we have done so far is that it's very easy to have, I would say, a moonshot and to have the solution, the vision of a perfect solution. But I would say the major change is before you start, I mean, don't try to have everything designed before you start doing it. Start on the concept of the MVP. Start small, start the trials, learn from it, and once you've been advancing and testing what works, what doesn't work, learn why it doesn't work, share with the teams, and as you move forward and you have small successes, scale that as fast as you can. And every time you fail, you really need to learn out of it. And every time you fail and you learn something, I mean, I wouldn't call that a failure. This is also a major change because this also has to do with the incentives that you have to your teams. For instance, even when you're talking about the targets that a person has, or the variable, or the targets that are most of the times linked to variable compensation, if you don't build those incentives in the right way, you're probably going to have the wrong incentive. And sometimes people will deliver a project just because it's on their target. And sometimes the best thing you can do after testing and failing is killing products. And this is also a major change in companies. I mean, typical and classic industrial companies like ours, it's something that you have to get used to because it's not natural. There are several ways that you can follow what we're doing. I would say Plug and Play, of course, is a relevant partner. We have most of our initiatives in social media. And for those who are specifically watching us from Brazil, I would say we have a program that we are very proud about, which is Braskem Labs, which is an acceleration program that has 3 different initiatives. One is to accelerate startups that are in the validation phase, which we call Ignition. Then we have another group of initiatives called the Braskem Labs Challenge, which is problems that we face internally. And when I say internally, it's not only internally to Braskem boundaries, but also to address needs of our customers, of our value chain. So this is something that we can do with, I'd say, external support, but we can also put a challenge and have people to contribute and to build potential solutions for that. And then the most traditional acceleration program, which was when this initiative started in the past, Braskem Labs Scale, which is the acceleration of companies that have already validated their market solutions, but they need some support to scale and to speed up. We have today 41 companies that were accelerated in Brazil through those processes. As always, when we talk about this, I would say I really like to end this up with an invitation. So if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go further, you have to go together. So I would leave an invitation for those who want to join us in this journey. Please let us know, and we'll be more than proud to talk about it. That's what I would have for today, and I'm open if you still have some time for a Q&A session. I'm more than happy to attend those questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Edison. We've got a lot of questions in the queue, so we'll start working through them. The first question here is around the new green PE product that you guys are developing. Is that going to, I guess, what are the economic consequences or byproducts of this new program on the price of corn? Is it going to affect manufacturing hubs around supply or extend supply networks?
Okay, no, good question. In fact, it's not a new product. It's sugarcane ethanol, so it has very little impact on disrupting, I would say, regular chains. I don't know if you are aware, but Brazil is very efficient on sugarcane, and we have a very large industry for ethanol in Brazil. So Brazil is very, very productive. We've been in this business for 10 years right now. And I tell you, with the efficiency and the competitiveness of ethanol from sugarcane in Brazil, we have been quite successful in addressing. It started with one family of green polyethylene. We have moved towards other product families. And I would tell you that today this is a solution that is being very appreciated, not only in Brazil, but in Europe and also in Asia, mainly in Japan, because of the difference between, this is a biopolymer that is a drop-in solution, doesn't request any investment, for instance, from the conversion industry. They just replace one product by the other. Normally, when we talk about biopolymers, they demand a specific machinery and a specific process to convert them. In this case, this is a drop-in solution. We are also working now. We have partnerships, one specific partnerships in Denmark, to work on the MEG, which is a building block to produce PET, which is another kind of resin that we are developing with. That would be from sugar, not from ethanol, but sugar from sugarcane, in partnership with Haldor Topsoe in Denmark. We are scaling it up it's already on a demo scale. We are moving it up to industrial scale. We do expect to have success at the end of the year. So I'd say this is a major trend because it also has to do with greenhouse gases effect. I mean, when you're talking about biopolymers, you are able to capture CO2 from the atmosphere. So it's a huge change in the market, and this revolution has already almost 10 years.
And following up on that piece, what do you think are some of the things that are still missing in order to get us to a true circular economy? I mean, is it the recycling incentives? Is it the economics? What are some of those components that we're missing?
Okay, I'll tell you, there are a few relevant ones, I would say. By far, I would tell you that waste management is the most relevant one, which has to do with the fact that we need different behaviors from individuals and from society, but also I would say support from governments in order to incentive and to help on education and to create the right incentives, or in sometimes to create the punishment needed for people who doesn't comply to regulations. I mean, there is a regulation that is needed. I also think that what is positive to me is the fact that this is something where most of the actors are very new to it. So I would say it's not a long time that the petrochemical companies, that the brand owners, and that the waste management companies are putting their efforts and are putting their skills and bringing their technology capabilities to solve that problem. That's for me, it's a sign that as we move forward in the short term, we're going to have technology bringing new solutions to make this happen faster. Of course, there will be changes in behavior. There will be applications that probably will not survive. Everything should start with being, I would say, on responsible consumption from the beginning. But at the same time, today what we try to recycle was probably not designed to be recycled. That's why, for instance, we look a lot on initiatives regarding design for environment, which means let's go back to the very beginning of the chain and let's redesign the packaging. Let's redesign the product that was conceived with thought to the economy at the end of its life cycle. Let's go back and try to start it from the beginning with that.
Okay, we lost you there for just a few seconds at the end, Edison. But I'd like to quickly change our topic to COVID-19. So what are some of the changes in consumer behavior for your customers that you've seen, and how has that affected Braskem's supply chains?
Well, that's a very, I would say that's a very complex one, right? I mean, we are seeing several changes. I would say there is a move towards more sustainable solutions, and by sustainable you can understand it very differently. I would say you can talk about people having using more fresh products instead of industrialized food. You have people thinking about the carbon footprint of their behavior. So there is a trend that people goes more local in order to make their consumption. I'll say there are several trends that will have an impact not only in our supply chain, but also in the supply chain of our customers as well.
Fantastic. And final question here, before we'll have to wrap it up, but if you could actually stay on afterwards and answer some of these questions in the chat, I think they're pretty engaging. Looking backwards, what are some of the steps that you've taken at Braskem to optimize the production system? So inputs, obviously sourcing. What are some of those things that you guys have had to retool over the past 5 or 10 years to get yourself leaner and able to work faster and in coordination with other companies?
Well, I'll tell you one major change that I would say it was not a long time ago. I would say it was really recent. It happened during the last year. This is a remarkable one, which is the more integrated you are doing your planning, the better. I mean, even if sometimes we use it, and maybe because of the complexity and the lack of available technology, you try to slice your problems in pieces in order to solve them. And every time you have a solution for each piece, it doesn't mean that you have the best solution for the overall. And we are a very integrated company. I mean, if you understand, we buy feedstock from, let's say, in a typical business, from a refinery, an oil refinery, and this feedstock, we have a whole production chain. We produce a lot of chemicals, and out of those chemicals, a lot of resins at the end. And to have this view of the whole chain, going back to the planning of what kind of feedstock are we going to buy, I would say creating a way to have this overall view without the details and deploying this in small pieces is something I would say that is very relevant. And at the same time, having I would say an approach that is less deterministic, but I would say that you work with what will be the solution for different scenarios. I mean, if you have, instead of trying only to optimize or have an optimal solution, you really need to work with scenarios. In a volatile environment, you need to work scenarios. And what if I'm doing this because I'm betting on a scenario, but what if things change? What are the options that I'll be able to keep? What are the options that I'll be able to preserve? I mean, so that's, I would say, basically one of the major changes that we have gone through, I would say, the recent past.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Edison, for spending some time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. Again, there are a lot more questions in the chat. So if you could just stick around, would appreciate if you can work on answering some of those for our audience. So thank you again.
Thank you.